Today on Real Life and Real Estate, August 17th is come and gone. Oh my gosh, what do we do next? Well, hey there, welcome to Real Life and Real Estate. I am Mark Peebles, and I am just so glad that you're taking the time to listen or to watch this today. By the way, we do post these videos on our YouTube page. We are also available wherever you get your podcast. And I want to thank Advantage Home Warranty. If you're in Ohio, Advantage Home Warranty is the best home warranty on the planet. They're a family-owned company here in Ohio, and they own their own plumbing and HVAC company. I don't know if you know, but plumbing and HVAC are the two biggest claims that home warranty companies end up receiving. And so what did they do to control cost and provide better service? Well, they bought their own plumbing and HVAC company. And so Advantage Home Warranty provides amazing service. They've got all kinds of plans. I keep a home warranty on my personal home, and they've been phenomenal to work with. And so Advantage Home Warranty, learn more at AdvantageHW.com, AdvantageHW.com. All right, so I want to get into this today. August 17th has come and gone. What are we going to do next? And so today I want to talk to you about something very important, because as all of these changes are taking place, there are going to be buyers out there that are not just going to talk to Aunt Sally or Uncle Joe or their sister that just got her license, or their best friend that was thinking about getting into real estate. No, they're not going to do that anymore. They're going to actually be interviewing real estate agents like we've seen so much on the listing side of things for so many years. They are going to start doing this, and you need to be prepared to win when you are in those interview situations. All right, and so today I want to help you with this. Actually, over the next few of our times together on Real Life and Real Estate, we're going to be talking about a buyer consultation, and then I'm going to give you I'm going to give you some simple frameworks to use. Now, I said the key word there, frameworks. I want to give you something to help keep you on track. And so there's two frameworks over the next couple of episodes that I will be talking about. The first is the framework that is meant to help keep you specifically on track through your buyer presentation. What order do I do things in? What do I do next? Well, I've got a very simple 4-part framework that you can use to walk through a buyer presentation. Then, coming episodes, we're going to talk about the 6 phases of the home buying process, which is a simple framework to use for you to explain to your buyers the buying process, all the while selling value, value, value. And so today I want to get into the framework conversation. So the first framework that I want to teach you is for a buyer presentation to keep you on track, and we use the acronym TURN, T-U-R-N. So the acronym is TURN for the 4-part buyer framework. So what are the 4 parts of this buyer framework? Well, first, you're going to talk to build rapport. That's the T. U is understand the buyer's needs and desires. R is you're going to review the process, market conditions, unique value proposition, and important documents. N is next steps. So talk, understand, review, next steps. All right. Now, why do we need this framework? Well, first off, I don't want you to get lost in your buyer presentation. This is something specifically, as I said, to keep you on track. What it's going to do is it's going to keep you from launching into a presentation without understanding the buyer's needs and desires. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we as agents make is we want to go right into our presentation. Now, years ago, I was with Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. Right out of college, I started with Pfizer, and I went through their sales training, which back in that day, in the early 2000s, 2001, it was ranked as one of the top training programs in the world. And I got some phenomenal training from my time at Pfizer. Now, when they taught us about this, one of the things that they always told us is don't just walk up to a physician, we were calling on physicians as farmer reps, don't just walk up to them and go right into a presentation. You're going to lose them. You have to open the door. You've got to build some rapport, and then you've got to understand what's important to that customer. And in this case, we're talking about our future real estate client, our future buyer. All right. So this is to keep you from not just launching right into your presentation. One of the big mistakes, another big mistake we see is that agents don't take notes. Taking notes is very important. You need to take notes, whether it's a buyer presentation or a listing presentation, take notes. Taking notes shows that you are engaged. It also allows you to go back through and find some important pieces along the way that you can repeat back to them to make sure that they understand or to make sure that you understand what is important to them. So take notes, show that you are engaged. The last thing that the framework will do is prevent you from asking the wrong questions along the way. We want to help you ask the right questions. All right, so let's get into the turn process. And that first part of the framework is to talk. When you talk, you're building rapport. So you meet the client, and I recommend using the Ford model. Now, many of you have probably heard of the Ford model. This is in sales, it's one of the big models that's used for rapport building. Now, a funny thing is I used to have he was an investment rep. He was with one of the big firms that hired a lot of young guys. And I built a relationship with him. Actually, he did a great job building a relationship with me. But after a while, he would call me. He would ask me the same questions all the way through. And it was following this Ford model. So he was probably trained on it, but he just never made it his own and made it feel natural. He never developed questions, outside of the standard script. And honestly, he always had to stay to the script and use the specific order. Now, when it comes to this model, what I want to tell you is make it your own. And, depending on your current level of rapport with this prospect or with this potential buyer, you might change the order. So we've got family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So that's Ford. Family, occupation, recreation, dreams. Now, you can ask a number of different questions. Like one of the questions I like for recreation is, so what's new and exciting in your life right now? That opens up the conversation to recreation. Well, we just got back from vacation, or we're getting ready to go on vacation, or the kids are going off to college, which that deals with family, but it also can deal with the traveling and recreation. But that's a good opener question. Hey, how's your family doing? Or how old are your kids? If you don't have a lot of rapport and you don't know that they have kids yet, how many kids do you have? How old are your kids? It's just great things to be asking, okay? So it's a simple framework or a simple model for building rapport, the Ford model: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. I encourage you to use that. Now, one thing I want to talk about is the power of a chuckle. Years ago, I was in a training. If I say the name of the training on here, a lot of people are going to recognize it, but it was a Keller Williams training. And in that training, they would send us out into the hallway with a script. And I'll never forget when I go out in the hallway with that script, the script was, hey, so-and-so, this is Mark Peebles, and this is a business call. Now, I called someone that had been, he had become a friend of mine, actually. He had referred a ton of business to me. I think in one, or after I met him and sold him and his amazing wife a home, they actually referred like 7 other transactions to me in that year. It was like a dream client, but they became big fans of Mark Peebles. So his name was Damon. I went out in the hall. Damon answers the phone. I was like, Damon, hey, it's Mark. This is a business call. And instantly something like just died inside of me. I felt so dirty. I felt guilty that I was calling someone that I cared about. I care about his family. He was in the process of adopting. Like, I should have been asking questions about that. And here, someone that's been so generous with me, I call, and the only thing that I care about is business. And I just felt gross. So, fast forward, I end up going through a different training, and it was through Floyd Wickman. Floyd Wickman is big, a big training guy back in the day. He used to have sweat hogs, and then it became the Floyd Wickman program. And really, it was very natural training. It was very natural scripts that they would teach us. And Mary Johnson, now Mary Palin, was the actual teacher on that. She was phenomenal. But one of the things that I loved about Floyd Wickman training is they talked about call your prospect, make small talk, and then wait until there's a chuckle in the conversation and use the chuckle to turn the conversation to business. Now, as they were explaining this process to me, like all of these light bulbs started going off in my head, and I was like, wait a minute. This is what I do anyway. It is a natural way to have conversations. Okay, so it'd go like, hey, Joe, so where do you work? I work here. Oh, great. Where do you live? Well, I live currently in Westchester. Oh, that's awesome. So what do you love about Westchester? Well, I love that my kids are involved in soccer. I'm like, well, better that you're involved in soccer in Westchester than in Kalamazoo. I don't know. You make something up. Not really make something up, but you're working towards a place where it's a little bit of a chuckle, like, oh, yeah. When you get to the chuckle, now you can say, hey, listen, the reason I called, or hey, let me talk to you about this, okay? In building rapport, there's a natural place to turn the conversation, and that chuckle is the natural place. Now, I want you, as you're having conversations, even if it's just got home from work or, you're talking to a friend calls you on the phone, I want you to begin to listen for this, because I think what you're going to notice is that this is how humans communicate very often. And so there's power behind that chuckle. That chuckle allows you to turn the conversation. Now, even though I'm sitting here and in my head I'm going like, well, that was a terrible example. But the reality is, start listening to your conversations. When you get to that chuckle point, that is when the opportunity to turn the conversation to business happens. Okay, so there's power in the chuckle. All right, so here's what I want to talk to you about. We've talked about Ford. That's your building rapport. We've talked about the power of the chuckle. Now we want to get into the you. Understand the buyer's needs and desires. So here's what I'm going to encourage you on this. I'm going to make this part pretty quick. But one, I want you to use a buyer's questionnaire. You should have a standard questionnaire just to make sure that you don't ask the wrong questions. And on your buyer's questionnaire, you can take your notes right there. Now, one of the things I love, I use an iPad on all of my appointments. I use an iPad pretty much everywhere I go. And some of you might have other tablets or whatever that you can take notes on. I love it because, like listing appointment, I can take all of my notes in there. I can email a PDF right to my assistant so she can begin working on the description. But then everything is kept electronically right there. But I load my buyer questionnaire right into my iPad, into GoodNotes. That's the app that I use. I take all of my notes right there on my buyer questionnaire. I've got all of the questions that I want to ask to make sure I don't miss anything, and that allows me to be able to have my notes readily available on my buyer questionnaire, and I haven't missed anything in that process. Okay, so I'm seeking to understand, and in that understanding, the other thing I want to encourage you is, don't be afraid to ask the question, why? Okay, why is that important to you? We need a fence. Okay, why is that? Well, because we have kids and we believe that kids should not play video games 24 hours a day and that they should actually go outside and play. But we also believe that we'd feel more comfortable if they had a fenced yard to play in. Okay, great. Well, then now I know that that's important to you. We need a 3-car garage. Why is that? Why do you need a 3-car garage? Why is that important to you? Well, because we like our big riding mower, and we want to be able to park both cars in the garage while having our big riding mower in the garage as well. Okay, so whatever. You're going to ask all these questions. Here's the thing. You want to get to where you have 5 things in your notes that you can repeat back to the buyer and have them say the word yes, okay? Now, this is a sales thing, okay? We are in the sales business. We're in the marketing business too, but we are in sales. And so it's important to pick up some selling keys. Well, they're in sales. There have been studies done that if you can get 5 yeses out of a potential buyer, that when it's time to ask them to sign a buyer agency agreement and to close the deal with you, that they're more likely to say yes without objection. So what I would do is I would go through, okay, I want to just repeat back just to make sure I got it all clear in my notes. You guys need a fenced yard, just a place where the kids can play safely. Yes. You also need a 3-car garage, so you got that extra place for the lawnmower. Yes. Okay, and I've got here that you need 4 bedrooms because you need the extra space when mom and dad come to visit. Yes. Okay, you get my point. Your goal is to get to 5 yeses. Great. I've got some good notes here, and I'm going to get you set up on a portal, all right? Now, I'll talk about portals at a later date. I'm not going to get into that today. But we've worked through the understanding the buyer's wants and needs, and now we've gotten them used to saying yes to us, okay? Now, we have talked to build rapport. We have understood the buyer's needs and desires. Now we're going to review the process, market conditions, unique value proposition, and important documents. Okay, so this is where we would get into the 6 phases of the home buying process. I'm not going to get into all of that today, but we are going to review process with the buyer. We're going to educate the buyer to the process. We, at our company, one of the things we did, we actually taught all of this material in a class to all of our agents to help prepare them for all the changes that pretty much just took place in the industry. But we started this several months ago. But we wanted you to be prepared to sell your value. Well, part of that is you have a process. And one of my favorite things, my coach said it to me when I was presenting to her all of the things that we were doing to help our agents be successful, and sharing with her the 6 phases of the home buying process. She said, that is great. Process eliminates objections. And wouldn't you know, it does. And that's one of the reasons that we recommend that you share a process. You show the buyer that, hey, listen, I have a 6-phase process that I use to get you through this entire home buying adventure. All right. So then you talk market conditions, depending on where they want to buy. You've understood the areas that they want to be in, right? And so market conditions are going to be important. Different markets have different market conditions. But one of the big things I always explain to buyers is that we're in a competitive market. I can say that at any time. You might say, well, our market's not so competitive right now. But here's the deal. It's always potential. There is always potential for the market to be competitive because of supply and demand. I'm not going to get into that today, but if you don't know that we have the largest home buying population in American history, and we've been underbuilt for going on 17 years in the United States, that we don't have enough homes for the people that want to buy, then you know there's always potential for competition. So I explain that and how we get through that when I talk about market conditions. Unique value proposition. What sets you apart? You really need to know what sets you apart. So you review what your unique value proposition, some people call it a unique selling proposition. In this case, I think people need to know the value, and you need to use that word value that you bring to the table and explain that to your potential client. And then important documents. I think we need to be reviewing documents. I always tell my clients, the reason I'm reviewing this with you now is because I don't want the first time that you see this document when we're in a hurry to write an offer because there's multiple offers and there's only an hour to get it in, and here you're looking at this document for the first time. No, I want to explain a few important things on this document. And part of that process in reviewing important documents is going to be reviewing the buyer agency agreement or the buyer representation agreement. So we are going to review this with him, and it's going to work right into next steps. And so we've talked to understand, we've talked to build rapport, we've understood the buyer's needs and desires, we've reviewed the process, market conditions, unique value proposition, and important documents leading right into in the next steps. And so this is where we're going to agree to work together. If we can't agree to work together at that point, if you can't get commitment or close the deal at that point, then we're going to work on the next appointment, okay? So there's always a next step. And then once you have agreement, you're going to review what happens next, okay? And so this is the framework that we recommend using to walk or keep you on track through the entire buyer presentation. Make sure nothing is missed. So let me review. You're going to navigate. We say we're going to help navigate turn by turn through the buying process. So T, talk to build rapport. U, understand the buyer's needs and desires. R, review the process, market conditions, unique value proposition, and important documents. And N, next steps. And so that's where we're going to agree to work together. We're going to get our next appointment, and we're going to review what happens next. It's a simple framework. I encourage you to start thinking about using it. Next week, we'll talk about the 6 phases of the buying process, and we'll talk to you then.